Hi everyone, and welcome to this example of using the bisection method with your listen spreadsheets. So the example that we're going to look at is up on screen on the left hand side. So given that x cubed plus 3x plus 6 equals 0 has a root between -2 and -1, find the root to one decimal place with the bisection method. And I'll explain what that minus and plus means. What that is it's really important when you're starting your bisection method to know what the y values are for your original endpoint. So we have -2 and -1, and you'll see on the right hand side of the screen I have substituted these two numbers into that function to see what the y values are. When x is -2, it's -8, hence I've put a negative above -2 in the example, and when x is equal to -1, it's positive, so I've added that in. That's really important when we get down a couple of steps. We need to know which endpoint produced a positive y and a negative y. Okay, on the CAS calculator, open up a listen spreadsheets is the first instruction, and I've actually done a bit already. I have already labeled the columns as suggested: left endpoint, right endpoint, midpoint, and fmid. Fmid just means the function evaluated at the midpoint, so that's where we sub the midpoint into the rule. And I've already inserted in cell A1 the A value and the B value. Now, we're going to put in a formula into C and D, and the whole reason why we're using listen spreadsheets is we can populate with formulas. It saves us time having to rewrite them every time. And yes, it does take a little while just to make sure you're getting the right formulas in the right spot, but once your spreadsheet is set, it should then not take too long to find the solution that you're after. So in this formula, in this cell, I'm going to put in this formula: A1 plus B1 divided by 2. So A1 plus B1 divided by 2. So it's just picking out A1 value, B1 value. Press enter. Now, if your calculator is set up like mine, and you're seeing fractions rather than decimal answers, there are a couple of things you can do. You can go up to the little cog in the top right, go down the document settings, and here in calculation mode you can just change it to approximate. If you don't want to make it the default, that's fine. I often don't. I do it just for this purpose, and I make sure to put it back to auto later. Okay, so now we can actually see a decimal, which is important when we're trying to work out our answers to certain decimal places. In this case, it doesn't quite help if it's in fraction form. Okay, cell D. Now, in cell D, we have to put in the formula. The formula will change depending on what your function is in your question. Column D, what this is doing is it's substituting C1 into the rule. So, in this rule, x cubed plus 3x plus 6, I'm going to rewrite that, but anytime I see an x, I'm going to put in C1, and this is why it will change every time. So C1, not 11, 1 cubed, there you go, plus 3C1 plus 6. Okay, so what it's done is it's substituted C1 into that expression. Now, from this first line of working out, we can already see that the y value for the midpoint is negative. Originally, if we go back over here, -2 produced the negative y value. So this is why it's really important to know which one is positive and negative to start with. Okay, I've scrolled down a little bit on the CAS instructions, because when we come down here to in cell A2, we're not going to put in every single one of these formulas. It is dependent on what has happened before. So if A1 was positive, not the case. But if it was, we would put in this formula. If FA was negative, which we have, we're going to insert this formula into A1. Into A2. It will be equals, now if, or Fn, and then bracket, and we're going to put in D1 less than 0, comma, C1, comma, A1. Okay, so now what it's done is what this function is saying is, if the y value is negative over in column D, we want to now put in the value of C1 where A1 was. And that's sort of what we've just told the calculator to do. So let's move over into cell B2. If FB was positive, we would put in this formula, and if FB was negative, we would put in that one. Now, it was positive for us, so we would have to put in this first function. So it's going to be equal to if Fn equal bracket D1 greater than 0, comma C1, comma B1. Enter. Okay, so we've got that already. Now, in terms of the formulas, this is it for the formulas. No more formulas need to go in. But you'll see over here in the instructions for cells C2 and D2, highlight cells C1 and D1. So let's do that. And we go into menu, data, and then pick fill. And we scroll down. Oh, I may have. Yep, I think that's. Yep, there we go. Try that again. There we go. Menu, data, fill, and we scroll down there. Okay, so all it's done is it's picked up those formulas and adjusted because we're now in row 2. So you'll see that it's worked out the new midpoint for the new interval, and it's subbed it in to the original, into the original function. And what we've got programmed now in A2 and B2 is it will continually come back and check, okay, what's the y value here? If it's positive, it's going to replace where it was originally positive. If it was negative, it's going to replace the endpoint that was originally negative. So this is now what it will do. Once this is set up and your 2 first rows are complete, we now go to this. Now highlight row 2 and again use the fill menu option and scroll down a number of rows and then press enter. How many rows? Up to you. I would start with a few first. If you still don't see, remember the whole point of this is to repeat the process until you see A, B, and C, the values in column 1, 2, and 3, or A, B, and C, are all equal to 1 decimal place of accuracy because that's what the question wanted us to find. So let's do what the question has said. So let's highlight, menu, data, fill, and if you scroll down you'll see, let's go down to step, there you go. I've done a few. So let's scroll up a bit and okay. Now we're looking for 1 decimal point of accuracy. So in line 3 it's negative 1.5, that rounds to 2. That's negative 1.3, not the same. Row 4, negative 1.4, this would be negative 1.3, not the same. So we would have to move on. Here we go. We've got negative 1.3. This would round to negative 1.3, and so would this one, negative 1.3. So negative 1.3 is the answer, correct to 1 decimal place. Obviously, if you needed more decimal places of accuracy, it means that you need more lines of working out. And you can see that after this point, it will continually be correct to 1 decimal place, negative 1.3. So that is the answer. And I've just got here a note, you may need to fill down extra rows if you still can't see your answer. So if you've scrolled down and your A, B, and C are still not accurate or the same to the level of accuracy you're after, fill the line, highlight the line again, and then go into menu, data, and fill, and repeat it, and just scroll down a couple more lines as well. But that is it. Do make sure, particularly this thing here. These formulas are super important to know that you're putting in the right one in the right spot, or else the spreadsheet won't give you the answers that you're after. So do make sure that you're referring to these as you set them up. In terms of which option you would use to solve when you go to practice these questions in 6K, it does just say using the bisection method. Both methods do utilize a CAS, so it really is up to you which method you prefer. There are pros and cons of each. Totally up to you though. But that is it from me, my CAS, and the instructions for now. Be sure to rewatch this if you need. The CAS instructions are in this style lesson, so refer here when you are trying the questions out on your own. But other than that, as always, happy solving.